The worlds of Star Wars are full of countless alien species, each stranger and more fascinating than the last. Here you'll find 6 stories about just some of the amazing aliens who appear in the smash hit movie Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Featuring a dashing tale of piracy and double crosses, the story of a wise Jakku constable and an unfortunate droid, and a mystery that can be solved only by the gruff cook at Maz Kanata's castle. This collection will bring thrills and chills as it takes you deep into the corners of your favorite galaxy far, far away.
Hello, younglings, and welcome to episode 98 of Padawan Library. You thought it would never come, but it's here. 98, baby. We're almost to 100. So, I'm Levi Paratic. This is the Star Wars Junior Novel Podcast, and with me is my co-host, Tim May.
Hello. We have returned.
Yes, and we've had a caper to get to this episode, I would call this. A mad caper.
Now, it's of course all on me, because you had bought me this book.
I sure did.
The book we're reviewing this week is Tales from a Galaxy Far, Far Away, Aliens, Volume 1. By
what's it?
Landry Q. Walker.
Yep.
So, and this is officially filed under Young Readers, so it's within our purview. It feels like closer to a young adult book to me in some ways, but we'll get to that.
In terms of the length, I would say.
Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to the book itself. However, this book, you had bought it for me like a year ago or something and given it to me.
Found it at Dollar General, $2, clearance.
Which
baby.
I appreciated. I looked all over for 2 days straight, all over my house for it. I do not know what happened to this book. It disappeared. So, this was last week, before the episode should have come out. And then I text you in a panic on Wednesday. We record Thursdays, our episodes come out Fridays.
Right. I
text you in a panic on Wednesday. I can't find this book anywhere. And we eventually just have to, push the episode, and it was a disaster. So, before I texted you that, I had already ordered another copy of this book on Thrift Books. I ordered it on Tuesday. Right? So I was like, that's over a week, and the item location is Illinois. It'll be here. Illinois is only a few states over. No problem. It'll be here. So then it comes up, I wake up Wednesday morning this week. All right? And by the way, I released a Tim Recommends. I hope everybody enjoyed that nonsense. I apologize that you had to hear that, because I just feel bad about not putting anything out now, because now I've set a precedent that there has to be something of, vague content. But we'll get to that. Anyway, so Wednesday of this week, yesterday, I wake up at, 4:30 in the morning, and I go and look at the tracking on my package for this book, because I thought it was supposed to come, because I had looked the previous day, and it was in Pittsburgh, which usually means it's coming the next day.
Right.
For me. However, it said it just moved to Warrendale, which, by the way, is it's just a suburb of Pittsburgh. And it said it was going to arrive today, Thursday. Now, I get my mail in the late afternoon. All right? We record usually in the late afternoon. I wasn't going to be able to read this book, so I had to... I texted you at 5 a.m. 5 a.m. I texted you. I said, sometime today, meaning Wednesday. Meaning Wednesday, I say. I need to come out. You have recently moved into a cabin that you've been hired to work on.
I'm renovating it. Yeah, and I'm less than an hour from you.
Yeah, you're about 40 minutes away. So I was like, you know what? He has the book. I can just drive out there and pick up the book. And so you said, all right, I still have to finish the last story. Let me do that. I'll text you. You text me around 8 in the morning.
Yeah, I was like...
And I'm like...
Well, I will say this. I was up at 5 a.m. because Sally, my cat,
yeah, I thought I woke you up. You were like, let me get some more sleep. And I was like, ooh, shit, I woke him up.
Well, I was like, I'm going to read this story, but I'm going to sleep for 2 more hours. So I slept for 2 more hours, read the story, told me I was done. You were like, okay, I send you the address. And then I have no idea when you're showing up, and you showed up 40 minutes later.
Yeah,
like
I left immediately.
You left immediately. Got here before I could even, there's a chain over the driveway, before I could even take the chain down.
All right.
You get the book, and now you reveal to me before we record this episode.
Let me explain what happened here. All right. So there's 2 things. One, I started reading the book when I got home yesterday.
Okay,
I read the first story. And then I, went and did something, whatever. And then I woke up this morning and read 2 more of the stories.
Uh-huh.
All right?
Uh-huh, so you have 3 left.
And then I went to the zoo. And spent 3 hours at the zoo.
How was the zoo?
It was wonderful. A delight,
What was your delight of the night in terms of at the zoo? What brought you the most joy?
It's always the orangutans. I love those guys. The mother and father have been there for many years. I worked at the zoo many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I love those guys. The baby that was there when I worked there has gone and started his own family at another zoo, of course.
Wow, he's a man now.
Yeah, Ollie. Shouts to Ollie. But my prince, I love him. I would I saw them every day, so there was something of a legitimate relationship there for that summer. And then I went back the following summer, and Ollie was very dejected in the corner I saw, and I went back. It was just as a person going to the zoo, right? And then this was actually, we were shooting something there. But you remember this. The orangutan got so excited to see me. I was like, wow, these things are truly smart creatures. You know what I'm saying? He recognized me from a year ago. And I was went in and I was like, I wonder if Ollie's a man now and he's here. And I was like, no Ollie, unfortunately. And Joe never paid me any mind anyway. So shouts to Joe, the father. But, he's an old man. He was born in 86,
Ancient.
Anyway, so I went to the zoo. And I got back, and I started. I read the first. I read the 4th story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's 6 stories in the book, I should say. And then I was starting the 5th story. As I was starting the 5th story, and we were planning to record around 6, right? And it's about 5 now. I started the 4th story, and you text me and said, how much of the book do you have left? And I said 2 stories, and you were like, can you record at 5? This was about 5:15 that you did this.
No,
20
it was
till
before
maybe.
That.
Maybe it was 20 till.
I will confirm.
Let me look.
I should have said 5:30. Hang on.
It
was 4:39.
Yes. So I was almost exactly right. No, okay. Anyway, and I was like, okay. I figured he must have some plans tonight. He wants to get done early, which is fine with me. And I was like, you know what? It's a short story collection. I'll contribute hard on these first 4 stories, and you can carry my ass for the last 2. And I was like...
Well, the best part is I write all my notes in the books, and you have all my notes. I took photos of all of them.
This is the other hilarious thing. Literally right before we started recording, I got my mail, and it included my copy of the book that I ordered. Whoa, shit. And that's very funny to me.
I think it's gonna. You know what's gonna be funny? When you don't give me my book back, and then you find your lost copy, and you end up with 3 copies of this book.
Your copy is coming back to you.
I don't need it.
I already have to deliver the next book we're reading to you anyway, because I bought 2 copies. So you know what? Listen. I've been a terrible co-host these last 2 weeks, and I'm terrible co-host next week too because I'm on vacation and we're not going to have an episode. So
there's no episode next week.
I feel like we're really failing our audience here, going into the home stretch of the podcast. But we got some big stuff coming, so I feel okay.
We got some big stuff coming. Okay, no episode next week.
Yeah.
Then episode 99. There's no reading assignment. But there is a surprise guest.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
I don't want to say anymore in case it falls through.
In case it falls through.
But we have and don't get too excited. I don't want anybody thinking we got Jude or anything. We don't.
No, don't get too excited. You will literally not know this name when we announce who this is on episode 99.
It's an interesting person who has an interesting experience with involving some of the books. Some of the books we read. So yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I hope it happens. Obviously, if it doesn't, disregard this entirely, and we'll figure out what we're doing. And then we have a big episode 100 plan, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But
yes.
Okay, so couple things. One, I also got good content planned, by the way, for the review portion. There's something that popped up in one of the books that caused me to create one of my lists. I just want to say.
Okay, so, all right.
One of the stories, I should say. But anyway, before we get to that, and we don't need to dwell on this too heavily because we have pushed the episode a week. I don't want everybody to be like sitting through a 45-minute discussion of an educational film. But but we were gonna talk about The Amusement Park, which is a lost film by George A. Romero, the legend who made Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Martin, The Crazies,
Season of the Witch, Monkey Shines,
Creepshow, Night Riders, an absolute king, the absolute god of Pennsylvania filmmaking, it should be noted. And we're big, and Western PA especially, which we love to represent. Yep. I made that Pennsylvania films list, and it's on Letterboxd, and I saw somebody commented on it, and they're like, aren't there more Philly movies than just Rocky? And I was just like, well, I don't claim any true knowledge or love for Eastern PA. Like, I'm a Western PA boy. What can I say?
West Side, baby. And I agree with you 100%.
I mentioned this on the stupid Tim Recommends thing I put out last week, but I watched Mayor of Easttown, which is that HBO show with Kate Winslet. Very good, by the way. But that takes place in Eastern PA, and and I had to watch it because it's like the biggest Pennsylvania content of recent memory.
I'll actually tell you that that show This Is Us.
Oh yeah,
it takes place in Western Pennsylvania.
Does
it's like around the Pittsburgh area. Yeah,
I watched the first 5 episodes of that back in the day, and it did not. It felt very LA to me, but okay.
I'm sure it is because they live in the. My mother-in-law watches it, and they apparently live in the Pittsburgh area, and one of them went to a football camp in Meadville, which would have been a 2-hour drive from Pittsburgh. They clearly don't own a map.
Football camps in Meadville?
No, there's nothing in Meadville.
The only thing I know of in Meadville is Klan rallies, but okay. Taking a shot at Meadville. That's right. If you're in Meadville, come at the king.
There's this town. Oh man, I wish I remember the town because I'm always looking for roadside stuff. And there is this town in Pennsylvania. It's near the Pittsburgh area. They have a big big relief mural of this. But apparently there was a time when the Klan decided that they were gonna come into the town. It was over labor unions that the Klan was coming into the town.
They are on the wrong side of literally every single possible issue.
I know.
Fuck them. But obviously, but come on.
But this plaque commemorates the fact that the town fought back. So the Klan showed up as a rally, and the town threw rocks at them.
Shouts to that town.
The town people beat them and literally chased them out of the town.
So, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Okay, so we're
the amusement park.
Amusement park. Okay, The Amusement Park is a lost film. It was commissioned by the Lutheran Society of Pittsburgh. Now, here's the thing. I'm curious about what the Lutheran Society of Pittsburgh... I don't think it's an organization that exists anymore. I am a Lutheran. My father was a Lutheran pastor. So I kind of want to, like, ask around. I might even, like, have vague I might be able to find vague connections to the southwestern PA synod, which I assume used to run this charity. I wonder if there's any documentation about why they suppressed this movie for so long. All right, so anyway, this movie was commissioned by them about for George Romero, who obviously already, this was 1973, so after Night of the Living Dead, a fairly notable local figure at the time.
Apparently, it's between Season of the Witch and The Crazies.
Yeah,
is when he made it.
Yeah, that seems about right, because The Crazies comes out in 1974, I think. So anyway,
also shot in the same town as Night of the Living Dead. So if you go visit that town, they have like a plaque commemorating both movies. It's great.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. I knew the Night of the Living Dead, of course, but I didn't know.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, Night of the Living Dead shot at the cemetery in the town, right. And then The Crazies actually shot in the town. So
The Crazies, I'm blanking. I was thinking of the amusement park, but yes.
Oh.
The Crazies, by the way, is a phenomenal movie.
The amusement park shot in Westview Park, a now defunct theme park. It apparently closed in like 1978, so about 5 years after this movie was made. Yeah. And the cool thing about this movie is the lead actor, a man by the name of Lincoln Mazel, he opens and closes the movie as himself, as like an introduction.
Yeah, which I imagine was requested by the Lutheran Society. I want to just finish setting it up in case people aren't aware. So this was commissioned as like an educational film about elder abuse, right? Mm-hmm. And so, which obviously is always a hot button issue. It's, kind of, come back in the news again recently-ish with some, nursing home stuff. But I do. And Romero was very well known at this time, but remember also that after Night of the Living Dead, he does There's Always Vanilla, which kind of doesn't really get a full release, but is more of a drama / comedy. It's not a horror movie at all. He makes that movie, and I guess Season of the Witch, which is a horror movie, but is kind of not in the same vein as a lot of his other horror films. So he's not explicitly a horror guy. I don't think they really knew they were like, oh, he's a notable local filmmaker. So they hire him, and he makes this movie that they eventually choose not to use, and it's been, just sitting in Romero's attic or somebody's attic for, 50 years. But they, or almost 50 years. But they, so the movie, so there is this introduction by the lead actor, though, that I imagine was like their last-ditch attempt to be like, can we make this more palatable? Because he's just telling people, like, you all have old people in your life. You're all going to be old. You should care about, the way these people are mistreated. Very straightforward, extremely straightforward.
And a good sign of that, too, is the fact that, while in the course of the movie, you can tell it's summer. The trees are all green and everything. And then in the intro and the outro, you can tell the park's closed for the season.
Fall or winter, yeah.
It's fall. There's leaves everywhere. So it's, definitely some time has passed from the initial filming for these intros and outros.
So let's get into the meat of it. This is mostly kind of it's kind of a series of indignities visited upon this main character as the movie starts in this white space, like the construct of the Matrix, where there's a guy that's exhausted, bloodied up face, all this stuff, and then there's another guy who, he's a bit of a Mark Twain vibe, bouncy,
and you think they might be the same person, but you can't tell because
the makeup
one guy
is done very well.
Exhausted.
It's
it is.
Makeup. And one of them's
I thought not to digress, but I thought the continuity was really impressive in this movie because he is wearing a white suit during the entire film, and it gets progressively dirtier as it goes.
Yeah,
so
and there's So basically, like, this guy is excited to leave. He opens a door, and he opens it right. He's right in the middle of an amusement park, and he's going around trying to have a fun day at the park. And basically, everything is. Initially, it's just kind of like, well, this doesn't like. He's not being accommodated. Initially, it's that kind of thing, but eventually, it becomes more and more like vicious, and attacks, and they're like, I don't know, we don't need to go through every beat of the movie, but I by the way, this movie's only like 53 minutes long, and it's on Shudder. You can watch it on Shudder, the service.
You can get a free 7-day trial. That's exactly what I did.
I did. And I also watched like half of one of their 4-hour 80s horror documentaries. There are 2 4-hour 80s horror documentaries that are actually good, but like it's just like it's exhausting after a while. But anyway, but I think there were like I just want to like shout out Romero. He didn't write this movie. So I wonder. The one thing is, if you listen to the dialogue, I don't know. I can't remember the guy's name that wrote it, but
Wally Cook.
If you listen,
he does not have an a Wikipedia. So I wonder if he has an IMDb.
It might be the only major like thing he did, because I don't know, but The dialogue, if you just listen to the dialogue and think about the sequence of events in the movie, there's nothing about it that couldn't be done in a very straightforward manner. But clearly, Romero was just like, took the assignment and was like, I'm gonna like make a real film out of this, not just like a PSA. And and so he crafts these very elaborate sequences around pretty thin premises. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you have like the sequence where the young couple goes to the fortune teller, for example, and they see, and she tells their future, and it's like they're like and they're like in a shitty apartment with a terrible landlord, and like one of them is like sick, and she's calling a doctor, and the doctor's like at a fucking some bougie party, and is like, I don't want to come, and she has to call him from a payphone.
She has to go down these flight of steps.
Yeah, it's like, and the editing in this is very like in your face. Like it's very like,
because the kids are all like youthful. They're just like, hey, we want to see our future together, and she's like, well, you have to see it to the end, and like she shows them to the end, and it's it's a really intense scene, and then it like culminates in like the guy getting up, the girl running after him, and he just like pushes her away and walks away from her because he just can't bear
like
future.
The future is so bleak, and then. That is a thing where it's the old man, the main character, is just a witness to it. But then,
you have the bumper car sequence, which I thought was really impressive. Basically,
I like that.
A lot of what is done here is like various amusement park things, attractions are used in a way to show elder abuse, I would say. So basically, you have this bumper car scene where everybody's driving around in bumper cars, and then suddenly this guy signals to go left, and he turns right, and this elderly couple runs into them. Next thing you know, the cops show up. Next thing you know, the insurance adjuster shows up. Our main character, he's like, I saw it. They're telling
like,
the truth.
This lady, like she can't even see, like, what is... So there's all this, like, stuff, like, about how, like, old people are either ignored, like, condescended to in terms of their intelligence, like, talked about how they're cute, or like...
or financial disparities, too.
Of course,
there's a whole bunch about, like, finances. Because first thing they have to do is if the guy walks into the park, he has to exchange his cash for tickets. Meanwhile, there is a
which,
line
by the way,
of elderly...
is like what all amusement parks do now, which is insane.
Yeah, I know. And meanwhile, there is a line of elderly people who are pawning their items to get tickets to be in the park. So it's...
Well, I actually think, I think this movie came, like, the pre-release hype on this movie was that it's, like, the scariest fucking movie ever made or whatever. And I don't really think it's, like, a particularly scary movie. I mean, there are scary moments, but it's like...
I mean, the thing it imparted in me is like, boy, am I scared to get old.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very existential movie. But I think it's, frankly, there's a lot more of a kind of comic sensibility in it than I think what I had heard about it indicated. Because, like, I saw people like, this is the real fucking face of horror. Like, horror fans need to chill the fuck out. That's all I have to say. Like, the horror fans and horror press need to chill the fuck out. Like, they are so, like, deadened to anything that they need to, like, try to sell everything as, like, the scariest thing I've ever seen. Like, it's like, none of you are scared by anything because all you watch is, like, the grisliest shit imaginable. So, anyway, whatever. That's a side note. But the movie itself, though, my biggest takeaway is, like, I think Romero is often praised and he gets credit for being this great, like, satirist and political filmmaker, which he is, and that's all very much present in this. However, I think one thing he does not get enough credit for broadly is that he's a great, like, stylist and a great director, and even in something that's relatively non-narrative like this, a great dramatist. He's great at crafting a scene, you know, and that's what I always say about, like, something like Dawn of the Dead, which is my favorite movie of his and one of my probably 5 favorite movies ever. He, like, the things that make that movie work are that you have these, like, just incredibly well-constructed scenes that are not don't feel like set pieces at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's really good at just basic building blocks of drama. And I think even when you're making something relatively non-narrative, like the amusement park, that's very helpful because you have this, you have a through line. He's great with actors. This guy, the main guy, I'm not sure how much, like, he ever acted other than this.
He died in 2009. I'm looking at his IMDb right now.
He lived a long time. He was already fairly old guy.
He was in actually 3 movies. He was in The Amusement Park, a movie called Martin from 1977.
Yeah, a Romero movie. A legendary, great Romero movie. I didn't realize it was him.
And then he was in one episode of a TV series
Tales from the Dark Side?
No, it's called Net Playhouse.
Okay.
And it aired in 1966. So that's like, those are his credits. He died in 2009, and then I was going to actually look up the other actor, the Wally Cook, see if Wally Cook did anything else.
Well, the writer. Well,
nope, he did nothing. That was the amusement park.
I'm guessing he might have worked for the charity and written, like, a very bare bones thing. That's pure speculation, I don't know. But regardless, the main actor is very strong, and the only other things he's acted in was, like, one TV episode and another Romero film. So Romero's really good, and, like, and this period especially, from Night of the Living Dead through about Knight Riders in 1980, like, he's working with largely the same people, working in Pittsburgh. He, like, creating, like, really, like, being, like, the head of this kind of filmmaking community, and I think that's, like, this is very admirable. I love Romero, and I think he's, like, obviously gets tons of love, but I think he is one of the great American filmmakers, and I think the reason he's not thought of he's always thought of exclusively as a horror director, which obviously the vast majority of his movies are horror movies, including this one. But he's from New York City, of course, but, like, you know, he made his career in Pittsburgh and spent the vast majority of his career there. He moved to Toronto later in his life, but the fact that he was like, no, I'm going to stay in Pittsburgh, like, even though I'm, like, very famous, very well known, very respected, and they're making the kinds of movies I make in Hollywood in, like, the 80s. He doesn't move to Hollywood. He, like, he just keeps making movies in Pittsburgh, even when he makes, like, Creepshow. He's still working with a lot of the same people. So, like, I just respect that fostering of a real community of filmmakers outside of New York and Los Angeles, and I'm not like some sort of like these coastal elites like asshole. Like I love New York movies. Like but I think regionalism is such a part of genre filmmaking in the mid-century. If you look at like horror movies and sci-fi movies that were made in the 50s and 60s, a lot of those low-budget ones, they're made all over the country, and they're like and even independent film, quote unquote, has now drifted to just the big filmmaking centers. Los Angeles, New York, and now also
Atlanta,
Austin, which is, and Chicago to a lesser degree. But you have all that stuff. So I just think he's very representative of one of those regional filmmakers. Like Night of the Living Dead's just like a very low budget. Like nobody expected that movie to get a real release and become what it became. So this is not really specifically about the amusement park. I just love that I love that we got like new work from Romero from his prime. Like this is like prime, like from Night of the Living Dead through, I would say through Day of the Dead is like, and I like Monkey Shines also, but like that's such an incredible run of movies. Those movies are all really interesting and worthwhile. Other than maybe There's Always Vanilla, not a great movie, but.
Well, I want to shouts to, because the main character in the intro, he says that all the other actors in the movie are volunteers, so that of course means they're all Pennsylvanians. So shouts to all those Pennsylvanian volunteers who showed up, who just wanted to be in a movie. And it'd be crazy to think that you were at an amusement park, you were in this thing, and then you never got to see it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them certainly didn't. A lot of them are not alive, I'm sure. So it's but I do wonder, now that it's out, I hope that maybe some of the people that are in the movie, because obviously plenty of them are still alive.
That little girl, because that was a scene that kind of stuck with me too. Is the main character, he finally gets this kind of reprieve, and this little girl calls him over, and she asks, "Will you read to me?" And he's just sitting there. It's the first time he's ever taken a breather this whole time.
And he gets to read a book to her, and her mom is just rushing her along and won't let him finish.
Yeah, packing up their picnic and taking her away. And that to me read as a grandchild thing, whereas you're in the prime of your life, and you have this child in your life that you never get to spend enough time with because their parents are just too busy for you, sort of thing. So that that's how that read to me.
Yeah, all the situations sound very kind of simple and programmatic, but he always does something really interesting with the filmmaking that makes them hit harder. You know what I'm saying? So it's these are all things kind of in a subconscious way, and obviously one of the things that they don't really deal with too much in this. I wonder if it's more of a recent phenomenon. But one thing that really annoys me is and this is always very well-meaning, but when people talk about old people like they're babies, where it's oh, that old couple, they're so cute. I'm no, they're an adult couple, you know what I'm saying? They're cute because they're old. No, they're they're not teenagers, first love, puppy love stuff. These are people that live lives. You know what I'm talking about? It's it's just rude. I don't know. That's a weird thing. And I think if you made a movie like this today, that would be a situation that you could maybe do something interesting with. But
for sure.
All right. Well, I think we recommend it. We wound up talking about it.
I recommend it. It's thoroughly good.
Yeah, and
I recommend all Pennsylvania cinema.
If you are unfamiliar with Romero, not the place to start. This is pretty deep stuff. I'll say obviously the Dead trilogy: Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. But if you're not a big horror person and you want to get what I'm talking about, please check out Night Riders. This movie is so underrated, and I think actually a lot of listeners of the show would probably enjoy it. It's about a traveling crew of Renaissance fair performers that do jousts on motorcycles. All right, and it's about this crew, and they're like a kind of makeshift family. Ed Harris is the main character, his first leading role, and like it's shouts to Ed Harris, an absolute legend. So and he, by the way, he gives a great interview on the Blu-ray where he just talks about like, well, George is still like the best fucking director I've ever worked with, basically. So shouts to Ed Harris and just throwing everybody under, like legends under the bus, just like Peter Weir, fuck you. Like, by the way, I love that. And he's also great in Creepshow, by the way. Anyway. All right. So when we come back, we're finally going to discuss Tales from a Galaxy Far, Far Away, Aliens Volume 1 by Landry Q. Walker. So let's take our break and we'll discuss.
When we're back.
Welcome back to Padawan Library. I'm Tim May, here as always with Levi Peretic.
Hello.
And here we are on a wonderful summer evening. I can hear the birds chirping. I assume you can hear the birds chirping, listener.
Yeah, I'm sitting outside.
Levi's recording outside.
That's just how
it's beautiful...
I don't get great reception inside, so I may be recording outside for a couple months.
It's perfectly fine. It's a beautiful experience. So, this week, we are covering Tales from a Galaxy Far, Far Away, Aliens Volume 1 by Landry Q. Walker. So, this is a collection of 6 short stories.
About... They were initially released digitally, singly, and they was part of the journey to Force Awakens. And after Force Awakens came out is when they released them as a hardback together.
Right, and
this book is only in hardback.
By the way, I keep saying Volume 1. There has never been a Volume 2, and this was 5 years ago. I think it's safe to say Volume 2 has been scrapped. I think that's safe to say.
I think so too. And Landry has not written another Star Wars book either. He is mostly a comic book author. I can't find the only bio I can really find of him is the back on the dust cover. But he has worked on comics for Supergirl, Cosmic Adventures in 8th Grade, Batman the Bold and the Brave. He worked on the Incredibles comic book series, which is,
like,
I guess,
children's comics series.
Yeah, and I think that's how he probably got into into Disney. In 2012, he worked with. He released an Odd Thomas graphic novel with along with Dean Koontz. Apparently, apparently reached number 7 on the New York Times bestseller list for graphic novels. So, and then also we don't. Landry is not the only person involved in this. We also have Tyler Scarlett. And this Tyler is actually interesting because Tyler is actually a concept artist for ILM. So, like, how they got involved doing the artwork for this book, I'm not sure. But they have Tyler has worked on Space Jam: A New Legacy. I'm going in most recent. Yeah, Chaos Walking, that joint with Daisy Ridley. Mank was a concept artist on Mank. Ready Player One, cool. Transformers: The Last Night,
Yikes.
Kong Skull Island, Rogue One, Warcraft, and then we also have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Out of the Shadows and Transformers: Age of Extinction.
Tyler, very talented. I like the illustrations.
And, I agree.
I love concept artists. Like, that's a very cool thing. Like, because even if a movie stinks, like, you can have like really cool like concept art. Like, I'm not a big fan of Kong Skull Island. I have some problems with that movie, but like, there's certainly like I bet the concept people did a great job with it. You know what I'm saying? So,
I also I've watched this video once. It was during episode 3. They made this one of those webisodes that were on hyperspace that you can now find on YouTube, and it was about the creation of General Grievous. So the way George, because I loved this because we went through this since we technically went to art school and we had to do projects and then they had to be critiqued. So like you see this whole room of artists and like they're like, okay, we have this droid cyborg general, like design him. So they have this whole room, they design him, then they hang them all up on a wall, and George walks in, barely says anything, and George is looking at him and he's like, I like this one and I like this one, and he has a stamp, he has a physical stamp, and he goes over and he stamps the artwork.
That's good. I mean, that's like
which I know that made me think about this book, being that these are all characters from Force Awakens. And do you think J.J. Abrams had a stamp?
I bet he did. Yes, I bet he did. Maybe not a stamp, but I'm sure he went through a fairly similar process. That's how this works.
He definitely pulled out his phone and took a photo, probably.
Okay,
that's like what he probably did.
It was also made a decade later when that was more common. Like, relax. Like, we don't need to relitigate the sequels, like, every time anything from it comes up. I actually think I have seen footage of him approving concept art, actually. Like, it might not have been for Star Wars, and maybe it was for a Star Trek movie or something, but I am almost positive I have seen footage of that. So, like, I'm sure he goes through a relatively similar process. Anyway, so I do think the art in this is cool. Unfortunately, not a lot of illustrations. There's just one per story, basically.
One per story, and then the cover.
So let's talk about just the basic idea of this. Obviously, these stories were published individually. However, I do think they are. It's an anthology, though, and I think a reference point for me with this is, of course, the three anthologies that came out in the late 90s, Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, Tales of the Bounty Hunters, and Tales from Jabba's Palace.
Mm-hmm.
Which are about...
This is actually probably the closest thing we've gotten to that, really.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about this. I actually prepared some broader thoughts about this.
Okay.
So, those are obviously stories about minor characters from each of those locations. That corresponds one per film. I was always frustrated that we didn't get them for the prequels. I always thought, like, a Tales of the Pod Racers would have been incredible. Tales from Dexter's Diner.
See, I would have done Tales of the Senators for the second one.
Tales of the Senators actually is pretty good. There's not really a great one for Sith. I've been like racking my brain all day. I'm like, what could be a good one for Sith? And I cannot really think of one.
You could do something of various clone troopers, like during the Order 66
I guess
or something like that.
At the time that would have been novel, but now we've dealt with so many goddamn clone troopers.
Or you could have done Tales from the Jedi, like the Jedi Masters or something, and then you could have done short stories as to
66.
what. Yeah, all the ones we see in Order 66, what they were doing before Order 66. Why was Plo Koon flying in that old-fashioned Jedi
really
Starfighter?
Cool,
yeah.
And even... So they did this book, which is characters from two locations, Jakku and Maz Kanata's castle. And it's split...
spoiler, the final story does not take place on either of those planets.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. But... then on Last Jedi, they did release a book called Canto Bight that has 4 stories. But I believe, I'm not positive on this, I think they're all by the same author, or they're maybe by 2 authors or something. And there's only 4 of them, and there's so many creatures in Canto Bight you could have done this about. And I know Canto Bight's not the most popular part of that movie, even though I like it a lot. You know, one of my favorite parts of that movie. Whatever, we don't need to get into it. But
our boy Justin Theroux's in that.
Oh, scene, my king. But I also I understand everybody. I wanted it to be Lando too. Relax. That
would have been good. That would have been actually really good.
But
then we got the true canon character, DJ.
I love DJ. Respect. Never diss DJ in my presence. Okay, so actually, people would have been mad if it was Lando for that one-off joke scene. I would have loved that, but people would have hated that. So, good idea. Anyway. But But then, and I can't even remember enough about Rise of Skywalker. I guess Space Coachella or whatever that thing would be. I actually want to know why Lando's there. Like, what is Lando doing there? Like that?
Yeah, what is he doing? He's literally just hanging.
He's like hanging out in a trailer in like the desert. Like,
yeah, I know, right?
Well,
it's
like at a
weird
fucking music festival. Like, so weird. A
Wookiee stands out in a crowd, or whatever he says there.
Anyway, but I really like these, and I was always, especially I thought like it was a slam dunk to do Tales of the Podcasters.
The podcaster.
Good lord, there was way too many fucking Tales of the Podcasters, to be honest with you. But Tales of the Pod Racers, I always thought was such an obvious like book, and it was weird to me they never did it, and they still could, by the way. You could still do it. Anyway, so this, though, is the thing that makes this different from those old books is that this is all one writer. So there's kind of the voice across it that is fairly consistent, you know.
Yep. The I know you don't want to rehash this, but something I never liked about Force Awakens is like how it was all new creatures, with the exception of like Akbar.
I would love
Chewbacca.
to talk about this
because to me, everyone in that creature effects department was like, they were being sold. They were like being told, they're like, you guys are making the next Cantina characters. Like, all of you are going to make these new characters. They're all going to have backstories. And they were being sold like what the other movies would sell with background characters. But like, none of this lives up to any of it. Like, none of these characters are important except for Unkar Plutt.
Okay, I want to talk about all of this because this is a common complaint. This is not just you. This is not like and you guys all know, you listen to the show. You know how I feel about these movies. I have very complicated feelings about them, and by and large, I found them to be a great disappointment. I really like one of them as a movie. You can guess which one I like. Chill the fuck out, everybody. Don't throw your iPod. Don't throw your fucking iPhone across the room. All right, so but regardless, the one thing I disagree with consistently is that I actually think the creature design across the board in these movies is very good. I agree that it would be nice to have like a few people sprinkled in to kind of like, I think that helps the new creatures.
We didn't see a Rodian until Solo.
Sure, but
so it took 4 movies to finally see a Rodian.
Yeah, I agree, that's ridiculous, but I'm just although there's plenty of old creatures in Rogue One, we can exclude that. The spin-offs don't count in what we're talking about. But I think obviously sprinkling in some old creatures helps raise the level of the other creatures in terms of like prominence. People are like, okay, like because it grounds them in like an established world or whatever. I get all that.
Right.
However, the actual design work and the creatures in these movies is extremely strong. Like, there are not movies being made with these kinds of creatures. Like, and I love the creatures in Force Awakens. We'll get to some of them in this. I really like the creatures in Last Jedi. I'm a big Porg man. I love the Porgs.
Oh, I love the Porgs.
I love the little like crystal fox thing. Like
the fact that they're
the anime dork in me loves the crystal fox. Like I enjoy that they're expanding the palette to some degree of what a Star Wars creature can look like. It's the only aesthetic element of especially Force Awakens, but really these movies in general, that is going for anything new. That is not trying to just, like, update the aesthetics of the original trilogy. Like, it's actually, like, a fairly new design sense going on with the creatures, and the creatures alone. The ship designs are all very derivative, all that other, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is the only new element, and while I don't think that any of these characters are huge characters, let's be real. I just referenced Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina. That book is responsible for us thinking that half of those fucking creatures in the cantina are real characters. Like,
right.
Otherwise, it's just people's imaginations imposed onto action figures, which is wonderful and beautiful, don't get me wrong, but who knows if, like, a 5-year-old, when Force Awakens came out, didn't buy a fucking Zuvio, and we'll get to Zuvio, that's a whole other thing, but a Constable Zuvio figure, might have bought that and, like, come up with a whole story for him in his head, and will, when they're an adult, be like, I love Constable Zuvio. Who knows? It might happen. And so, a lot of fucking people saw that movie. Like, that was I'm sure that was a formative cinematic experience for some young people. Again, that's not saying it's good, by the way.
No.
I'm just
a lot
saying,
of people saw that movie, so.
I think that department did its job. It was not on them to imbue these characters with, like, iconic status. That's, first of all, to some degree on the storytellers, but it's also, let's remember, largely on the audience. The audience is who imbued Lobot with so much significance. Lobot is a nothing character, and that's not an insult. That's not an insult to Irvin Kershner and Larry Kasdan and George and the rest of the crew. They all did a great job. Lobot is cool looking, and he interacts with a character that we do know a lot about, so it helps, like, raise his level even though he does nothing of significance. You know what I'm saying? In the movie. So, like, that is the balancing act, because you can't just, like, give all this endless fucking backstory for these characters that ultimately are not going to matter to the story at all. Like, but you just want to, like, give them a slight moment. Like, even the cantina scene, the way it's cut, shouts to Marshall Lucas, the way it's cut, you have this, like, you just get these, like, nice spotlight shots on each of them, and then they're just in the background, you know what I mean? So it's like, you don't need to do that much. And I do think, as much as, like, other than Constable Zuvio, who we're about to jump into,
yes.
Like, other than him, because he's not in the fucking movie, the rest of these characters are at least aesthetically and visually memorable, and are actually, to be fair to J.J. Abrams, he highlights them in somewhat interesting ways. You're like, oh, that's a cool little moment with that character. So I do wonder, and, like, it's up to books like this to give us real, like, depth on these characters. We can talk about whether the book succeeds on that.
We need to get to this because my computer's at 35%.
Oh, shit.
And in order to charge it, I would have to, like, go and run grab an extension
cord.
All right.
I apologize.
So let's get into this.
Let's go story by story. The first story is about Constable Zuvio.
It's called High Noon on Jakku, and I'm going to recall, since I don't have my notes in front of me, I'm going to recall what I can recall about these stories, all right? So, High Noon on Jakku is about Constable Zuvio. Crisis, there is a bank transport ship, and somebody has run off with all the money. Problem, well, we find this out at the beginning of the story. There's a droid.
Suspect is this droid who is beloved by the community. He's a pillar of the community. Yeah, he's a
300-year-old secretary droid, if I remember correctly. And basically, so at the beginning there is a standoff between the two of them, and then we go back to trace the story. This involves Constable Zuvio having to, like, go to a hideout where there are a bunch of droids that are all in cahoots on this bank heist, basically, and they all attack him. He has to, like, kill a bunch of droids, unfortunately, and then you find out that they all have restraining bolts, and that a guy from the bank is actually the one who stole all the money, and he used the droid. The droid was just a pawn in his scheme, and I remember. And doesn't Zuvio kill the droid? He has to shoot the droid dead, or did they repair the droid at the end?
I can't remember. I read it this morning or last night. Yeah, I don't think he kills the droid, does he?
He shoots the droid. Yeah, I know the. Because remember the droid. The droid has, like, he knows how fast the droid is because of how quick the droid can be a secretary and, like, take all the notes that it has to take. So, like, he knows how fast the droid can be, and there's, like, a quick draw scenario where, like, he ends up. I know he shoots them, but I can't remember if the droid recovers or not.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't
matter. It really
doesn't
matter.
The thing about this story, especially, I mean, obviously these stories were largely written, almost entirely written, before Force Awakens was released. And, of course, Constable Zuvio, for those of you who don't know, I believe appears in the first Force Awakens teaser, right?
I don't.
Or he appears in some marketing material.
He had action. He had a Black Series action figure.
One of the first batches of stills that was released from the movie had a still of him. That is the only thing from the movie that we've. I mean, I think he's in the deleted scenes on the Blu-ray, but.
I believe it's a 3D Blu-ray that he's in specifically.
Yeah, only those ones.
But apparently there's a whole backstory with him and Rey. I'm assuming he had dialogue that didn't translate into the movie at all.
But he was entirely cut from the film. And actually, a good decision, because again, I've said this before, the first 40 minutes of Force Awakens fucking slap. They're great. And bogging it down with this character who seems fairly boring, to be frank. At least if this was the thinking of the story group at the time. But so that's, that story's whatever. The next story, this is the highlight of the book. At least
A Recipe for Death.
All right.
Now this character, his name is Cookie. Or his real name is Stano Tugs, a.k.a. Cookie. He is the head chef at Maz's castle, and I have no recollection of this character.
I don't remember seeing this character at all. Maybe they were also cut from the film. I don't know. However, this character, this story is really fun because this story is basically about. This guy is the head chef at the thing, and his sous chef he finds has been murdered, and his recipe book is missing.
His sous chef is hanging in his freezer, so he's like, oh, somebody's trying to frame me for this. So the recipe book's missing, so he knows it's one of the other cooks who want to take the sous chef job. So he tells them that the sous chef left. Doesn't tell them he's dead. Tells all of them that he left suddenly, and he's doing auditions. He's holding a competition for the sous chef job. So the four of them all compete, and he has judges that are these two droids that are very sassy. It's basically an episode of Chopped. You texted me about this earlier. Yes,
it's basically an episode of Chopped.
Because there are holo droids videotaping the whole thing. Yeah. Everybody in Maz's castle is watching in anticipation.
And they have 3 rounds,
dessert round.
Yeah,
I know. At one point, one of the rounds is in zero gravity. He turns the gravity off in the kitchen, and everybody's floating, and they have to make their food. It's crazy. And there's Jam Jarmusch.
Okay, this is where I made my list. Okay, so there's a character named Jam Jarmusch who's who is a Quarren or Mon Calamari or is maybe mixed race situation.
I can't remember, but he is. The name is so close.
It's Jam Jarmusch, and he's supposed to be this detached, cool guy. Is how he's described. So he's clearly supposed to be modeled on Jim Jarmusch, the legendary American independent filmmaker. A true king, one of the coolest guys of all time. So,
I agree.
Before we move on with the story, I just wanted to drop my top 5 Jim Jarmusch movies. And I'm not going to spend any real time on this, but number 1.
Okay.
Number 1 is Mystery Train. Have you seen Mystery Train?
I have seen Mystery Train.
Fucking awesome.
Great movie. Incredible movie.
Number 2, I go Dead Man. It's a classic. Dead Man fucks.
Incredible.
Great movie. Number 3, I gotta go, you know what? I'm going with something relatively recent. Only Lovers Left Alive, straight up fucks.
Incredible movie.
That movie rules.
Incredible.
Number 4.
The John Hurt performance in that is so good.
Thank you. That's the highlight. I agree. Oh my god. That's one of his last great performances. Ripped to the god. Okay. So, number 4, I gotta go, this is a personal favorite that I'm a big fan. Actually, I'll say number 4 is Stranger Than Paradise, his first movie.
Okay,
well, it's actually his second movie, but his first major movie. I love that movie. Just a delight, a legendary movie. And number 5... Oh, I forgot about Down by Law. Shit.
Yo, I was about to say, where the hell is Down by Law on this list?
So high. Down by Law is fucking number 2.
Because I'm is he not including Ghost Dog on this list?
Oh, and Ghost Dog. All right, and then of course my personal favorite that is not like one of his ones that people love is Night on Earth. Especially the Winona section, I love.
Oh, that is really good.
And like, it's a little uneven, but Night on Earth is awesome. Anyway, he's great. Watch his movies. He's an absolute. Oh, and Patterson, by the way. Did you ever see Patterson?
I have not seen Patterson. That is so
great.
on my radar.
Adam Driver, the Lord. Never diss Adam Driver. We don't have any haters on the podcast today, so we can just say that Adam Driver is a fucking legend. So anyway. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, so the rest of the story, though, ultimately ends in he winds up thinking it's the Jim Jarmusch guy, but then he realizes, no, it's actually the droid judges because they wanted to like take over the entire establishment.
No. It's because they test food to see if it's like poisonous or not, and the sous chef, he made this recipe that like they couldn't identify what some of the ingredients were, and the sous chef wouldn't reveal his secrets, so they had no choice but to kill him. And they try to kill him, and he has to dispose of both of them. And that's where the story ends.
A very fun. Also, it was a fun idea for a story. I had a great time with this one. Again, I don't know who any of these characters are. They have no. But this is the kind of thing that if I watch Force Awakens again, if I notice this character, now I'll be like, okay, I know something fun about this character. Like that's the idea. I don't remember this character being in this fucking movie at all, but okay. All right. What's the third story we got?
The third story is actually my favorite of the stories. All creatures great and small.
This was a lot of fun. I like this. Yeah.
This character here, I don't remember this character actually appearing in Force Awakens.
He's in it.
But he famously appeared in. Do you remember J.J. Abrams made a video where he was like, "Oh yeah, we're shooting the movie and we're doing practical effects," and then this character actually walked into frame.
It might be the high point of my like fandom with the sequel trilogy, because I gotta say that video pumped me up. Not because like I'm not some like anti-CG crank. Like CG is a tool. Everybody chill the fuck out. It can be done beautifully. However, like it was just cool to see a giant fucking creature walking around like that. I was like, that's dope.
And JJ, like, he looks at the character, the character looks at him, character walks away,
this
and then
is
JJ
like the
goes
old man, like, with the wispy beard, like...
Yeah, and he's got a big pack on his back. Anyway, so this story
What's
is
his name, actually? Barobo or something?
Bobajo. Bobbajo. Anyway,
Babaho or Baba Joe, I don't know.
He is a legendary storyteller on Jakku. People love hearing Babaho's stories. So anyway, they're in this town in Jakku. Wouldn't you believe it? Some slavers show up, and they are ransacking the town, taking people as slaves. Basically, a whole bunch of them run into City Hall. And they fortified City Hall, and you can hear the slavers outside. And Babaho, he is like, I gotta calm the children down, I gotta calm everybody down, I gotta start telling my stories, man. So he starts telling this story about how he himself, he is the main character of the story, and he's got a pack of animals on his back, he's like a traveling zoo, how he himself is a prisoner aboard the Death Star, and he is in the detention block as A New Hope is happening. And basically what happens is his crew of critters that he has, each of them has a special talent, and they get him out of the Death Star before the Death Star explodes. And like, he's just this old man, they don't explain why he's in the Death Star, but his lovable crew of critters, which I could picture as being like these 80s very Jim Henson critters, very Labyrinth,
Battle for Endor.
Yeah, very much that.
Very Teak, if you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and they have to, each of the critters has its own spotlight and what they have to do to get him free. At one point he goes to sleep in a janitor closet, and then he escapes the Death Star in an escape pod, and then, wouldn't you believe it, I think Constable Zuvio shows up at the end of the story and chases the slavers off. Yeah, and then Zuvio saves the day again.
But this is great, because this is the first Death Star, and like, basically, they're like the adults are all like, you know, don't try to fill our kids' heads with this bullshit, like these magical creatures.
Exactly.
Like, it's a lot of fun. I had a good time with it. One thing we haven't talked about with this book is that like all these individual stories are split up into chapters. And
yes.
This book had 4 chapters. This story had 4 chapters and 4 pages. At one point, it was wild. Anyway,
the final story is like that as well. The
Yeah.
final story has chapter upon chapter. I didn't count, but it's kind of crazy. They could just be page breaks, really,
Yeah.
instead of chapters. But they went with chapters.
because I feel like the chapters actually like kill the kind of like quote unquote intercutting momentum a little bit. Like, it's, like that's obviously they're like, well, we're going back to his story, so we need to like put some sort of break here. But there's so many other ways, literarily, whatever. That you could do that are less awkward. I feel like, but it's fine.
I agree. So that's that story. That was my favorite of the stories.
Yeah, those
I thought
two.
that was...
I mean, again, I only read through the 4 of them, but those 2 I liked a lot. The first one and the 4th one, less into those.
Yeah, and the it's funny because one of the critters is tasked with deactivating the tractor beam, and then they get there and the tractor beam's already disabled, and they're just like, well, I don't know why this happened. Like, but anyway, our next story. Oh, these first 3 stories all have evil droids in them.
Yeah,
something I noticed.
A known droid hater like me must be so happy about that, right?
Right, yeah, because one of the critters in the 3rd story has to has a tussle with an angry astromech droid.
In the Death Star, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Oh, go ahead.
All right. So this 4th story is about what's that character?
These are these fluffy characters.
Yeah,
they are yellow. They have big
recognize
heads.
the characters, but I can't tell you where. I mean, they're obviously from Maz's Castle.
Maz's Castle. I think they show up for a split second, and then like the real main character of this story. Turns out these characters are surgeons, and they're like these Frankenstein kind of surgeons where they are making monsters, and they have a crony who is. It is Drix Gill, and he's basically like their Igor. He's kind of this hunchback, this kind of deformed man, and he has to do all their dirty work. Meanwhile, we have this character, a criminal by the name of Ryan Biggleston, and Ryan had a partner who was B. Lee Amdas.
Turns out names are wild.
They are wild. So
Biggleston is an all-time name.
Yeah, Rin Biggleston poisoned B. Lee Amdas, who is apparently some alien creature who is mostly immune to most toxins except this one. Apparently, Rin Bigglestone did her research, and she poisons her and then takes off with her ship. So B. Lee is dying, but B. Lee sensed that this would come. So B. Lee puts Rin's whole criminal record out there for everyone to know. So she's this wanted character. And Rin ends up escaping to Maz's castle, and she is allowed 1 night stay for free, and then she has to turn loose, and she knows as soon as she goes outside, she is going to be attacked by bounty hunters. Meanwhile, she comes across with these surgeon characters who promise her a new identity. All right? There's this whole crazy surgery
they're
scene.
Like, these like plastic surgeons, basically. They're like the character, it's like in Minority Report when Cruz goes to the thing to get like a new set of eyes and like
exactly like that.
It had that vibe to me.
Yeah, and these characters, I also like that they don't talk. They talk kind of like Jawa. They just sort of make noises. They're actually not the main characters of the story, really. Anyway. So they do this whole surgery scene. She's in bandages. She has this whole plan that she's going to screw these guys over and not pay them because she has this whole hidden fortune. Turns out when she was under anesthetic, she mentioned all of this and doesn't remember it, mentions where she stashed her fortune. She ends up escaping Maz's castle, but she takes off her bandages, and guess what? The critters, they made her look like B. Lee Amdos, who was a good friend at Maz's castle, a respected criminal at Maz's castle. So the critters made her look exactly like B. Lee, who is also a wanted criminal, and the police catch her, think she's B. Lee, and she's arrested. So that's like the irony of the story. That's the face of evil
it's
in
like
the story.
A
So
Henry twist ending thing. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I actually didn't mind this one. It was kind of fun. It felt like very inconsequential, but then again, why are these don't need to be consequential? So I had a good time.
All right. Next story. The story you didn't read.
I didn't read. This is the Unkar plot story, which I have deep regrets about not reading.
Called True Love. All right.
Is Unkar plot? Does he fuck in this story?
No. Okay. The main characters of the story.
I love how you're like, no.
No. Two characters try to get him to fuck, though.
So
he has two minions.
Unkar Plot is the portion guy, in case people don't know.
Yes, the only everybody's second favorite junk dealer.
But he's annoying. I love him.
I think he is actually the only true delight, like kind of alien creature, maybe other than the Porgs, that are actually like memorable from the whole sequel trilogy. So anyway, he has two Cromans, minions. Their names are
Kevin
Slogan and Dave John Lago. So I guess I'm just going to call them Dave and Slogan. And they think that Unkar Plutt has stashed riches, unforeseen riches that he has stashed somewhere on Jakku. So they get an AI program that they make look like a female version of him.
Oh.
And she's like, I'm on our home planet, and I am being forced into this loveless marriage, and like
with herself, basically. Is that the idea?
No. She's being forced into this marriage with some other guy on Unkar Plutt's home planet, and she is like, "Oh, Unkar Plutt, I just need someone to talk to." So he starts talking to her, and then at one point, the AI itself. Basically the whole idea is this AI is supposed to catfish him and figure out where his riches are. Okay? So at one point she's like, I need help, I need money, and Unkar Plutt's like, of course I'll help you. I have all these unforeseen riches, and they are here. He gives a location, alright? But it's at this point the AI actually starts to have feelings for Unkar Plutt. She starts to get guilty about
Unkar
it.
But so
the minions, they basically say screw you. They use this other program to get the information from her. They go out into an abandoned Imperial walker, and they get inside it, and there's nothing there. All right. And then Unkar Plutt, he shows up in this divider. There's this other piece of glass. There's like a glass between them. And he goes, I knew it was a ruse all along because there is no female version of my species. We mate with this other species, like basically kind of thing. Like there is no female version of me, basically.
God, Unkar Plutt was just like...
He knew it was a ruse right from the beginning, and he just played along. So basically, he locks these two guys in this Imperial Walker, and he says, I'll be back for one of you. And they're like, how was there one of us? He goes, I left enough food and water in this thing for one person to survive for a month. There's not enough for two.
Not enough portions.
Yeah, I've only left one portion, 1 month's portion. So basically, and then that's where the story ends. He abandons them in the he abandons them in the dark, and then the AI. He is having her do like his like multitasking. She's basically like his Suri, where he's just like read my emails, and he's constantly threatening that he's gonna delete her, sort of thing. So, but yeah, that's the story. That's True Love.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So, and then the final story.
That's a kind of cool idea.
Yeah, I thought
I'm not a big AI and Star Wars person, as you know, but I enjoy it.
Now, the final story, The Red Corsair and the Lost Treasure of Count Dooku.
I really wanted to get to this, because I want to know what this is.
Okay, so the Red Corsair is a character that we see in Force Awakens.
Right.
There's the part where Finn he's like, I'm out of here at Maz's castle, and he almost boards the Red Corsair ship. He's this guy in this red mask.
Pretty cool mask.
Yeah. These guys are basically pirates. The Red Corsair is basically the captain of this crew, all right? And during the Clone Wars, there is a separatist ship that goes down, basically, and this one of those tactical droids, there's something on board that belongs to Count Dooku that cannot fall into the Republic hands. So he ends up, this tactical droid, he comes up with all these solutions as to what he has to do to protect this, and his solution is to just light speed into nowhere. Doesn't calculate anything, just light speeds, and ends up crashing onto this desert planet that is not Jakku. All right? So, this ship sits till the sequel trilogy, and apparently it's crashed in this desert area where there's these ion storms, and there's these big sandworms like Dune, and basically the ship has charged up because of this ion storm and is sending out a distress signal. So you have the Crimson Corsair, he gets the signal, he's after it. Meanwhile, you have this other guy who wants revenge on the Corsair. Apparently the Corsair left him dead at one point. He is a Weequay character, that species.
Yeah.
Then you also have the Gondark Vipers or something like that, even though none of them are Gondikes. They're like a biker gang. And then you have a Hammerhead, or an Orthorian, I believe is how you say their name. Ithorian, and he's in a sandcrawler, okay? So it's almost like this Mad World scenario where they're all chasing after the lost treasure of Count Dooku.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Okay. All the other pirates fail. The guy in the sandcrawler, he's eaten by a sandworm. The Weequay character is so funny. He goes to get his revenge, and the Corsair is like, "Who are you? I have no idea who you are." And he's like, "I'm this character." He's like, "I've met a lot of Weekways in my life, and none of them have been good people."
Wow,
he's like, "You're unmemorable."
racist.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Do you want me to get to the treasure, or you want to say something?
No, get to the treasure.
All right. They get to the treasure. It's a cryopod. All right? They open it up. There's a clone trooper inside. This clone trooper, apparently, he found out about the chips inside the clone troopers' heads that would cause Order 66. Yeah, he finds this information out. This is the information he has. Count Dooku captured him and was trying to extract this information from him, basically. Or they put him in a cryopod to take him to Count Dooku. Never made it to Dooku. Then there's this whole scene where a bunch of super battle droids are activated. The Crimson Corsair's crew, they have to leave, and the Corsair, he sacrifices himself so that they could all be saved. So they escape the desert with this clone trooper. The Corsair is not the main character. He has very few lines in this. Then at the end of the story, a week has passed. His crew's waiting for him, and they're like, "He's dead. There's no way he's alive." Then the Corsair shows up, and he goes, "I got this data cube that I found on the ship. It has all the locations of all of the hidden droid factories on it. These were rigged to detonate if the ship crashed. This one didn't. I know where all the abandoned droid factories are. I know where all the metals and precious metals are and stuff. We got this clone to lead us into them. He knows all about them. That's the true treasure of the story."
Damn.
So
that's
yep.
cool. Okay. I'll say this. We can start wrapping up because I know your computer's dying.
I'm at 19%.
All right, we're good. All right, so I think, and I'm not going to give this a final rating because I didn't finish it. I would feel bad about it. However, I do think conceptually, Landry Walker did a very good job here, like coming up with like fun angles on all these, on most of them anyway. I didn't love
Chopped, of course.
Vesuvio, not a big fan. I love that Chopped one. But I enjoyed kind of all of them that I read, and the two that you described to me that I didn't didn't finish sound very fun too. So this is cool. I wish there was volume 2.
I wish there was volume 2 as well, because you could have done it with Canto Bight or just any of the various characters that they encounter. Rise of Skywalker would have been more difficult, in my opinion, because...
Well, you go by everything so fast that...
that stupid slug character who's in the Falcon for no reason. They even give him, like, a stupid name like Gus. I hate that character. He even shows up on posters. Character is completely unimportant.
Okay.
Why do we need a giant slug on the Falcon? He's worthless. Get out of here, Abrams.
What's your final take on this book?
My final take is I kind of dreaded this book for a long time because of the length, but I had a great time with this book. This book was better than I thought it was going to be, and I'm going to give it 8 midichlorians.
All right, and I'm not going to give it a final score, but of the 4 stories I read, I really, really enjoyed 3 of them, and I even love one of them, so I think 8 is about right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for carrying my lazy ass on this episode.
I had to read that story so that you could get the book, which is so funny.
I obviously could have read the story. I thought I had time. It's fine. It's all fine.
I rushed you because I didn't want to be making... I either had to make dinner before the podcast or after, so that's why I rushed you. It's fine. Let's talk about 3 weeks from now. All right. No episode next week.
No episode next week. I'm on vacation. I apologize.
Yes. Surprise guest the following week.
Yeah.
Then we have episode 100.
Now, for this episode, we have decided we were racking our brains what we're going to do for 100th episode. And
something that's in line with Padawan Library. Something that's uniquely us about Padawan Library.
The author we've covered the most, by far, is Jude Watson. And she's also, by far, our favorite Star Wars junior novel author.
Without a doubt.
She, we're very invested in her original characters as well as her characterizations of our favorites from the movies. Mm-hmm. So we thought to honor her, because we finished the vast majority of the books she wrote, Star Wars books she wrote, to honor her, we're going to read one of her non-Star Wars books for our 100th episode. And we were going to figure out a Star Wars topic to do as well. We'll figure that out.
Right, we have to do that.
But we're not going to announce that now because that's a couple weeks from now. But so we're going to read the book she won the National Book Award for.
In 2010, she put this book out. The same year she finished. 2008. This is the same year she finished Last of the Jedi, by the way.
This book's called What I Saw and How I Lied. It's a coming-of-age story that takes place post-World War II. Sounds kind of cool. I'm pretty excited about it. So
it also is under a different name. Judy Blundell is the name that she went by.
Which I believe is her real name.
Or married name, I'm not sure.
Whatever.
Scholastic also put this book series out, and I wonder if it's just because she wanted to distance herself from the whole all the Star Wars books that she put out.
Because she also uses Jude Watson when she writes for the 39 Steps, and
right.
I don't know if there's a specific logic to what name she uses given what project, but regardless. Credited to Judy Blundell. It's a widely available book, by the way. So if you want to read it, you got 3 weeks to read it. So
yes, because we had toyed with doing her first books series, The Brides of Wildcat County, which is 6 books.
Yeah.
Only 3 of which you can find on eBay right now, and the first book goes for $20. So it was either we buy this $20 book and we have to share it, or we buy What I Saw and How I Lied for $3 a piece, and we could each have a copy.
Yeah,
so that's what we went with.
And also, it's a standalone book. We don't need to worry about it. There's not going to be any threads dangling about the brides of Wildcat County. So
we're very excited to read that book. So that's going to be episode 100. It's a little on Star Wars, but big on Padawan Library. That's in my opinion.
And we'll also maybe announce our schedule for the rest of the run. Maybe we'll figure that
out.
For episode
yes, because 100. We only really
we got 3 major series left and a few one-offs, I think. So
yep, that's about it.
We're pretty close to the end here, but So check us out in 2 weeks. We'll see if there's any bonus content. I don't know. I'm going to be on vacation. I might want to just relax.
I could maybe record something, but we'll see.
Levi recommends.
Yeah, Levi recommends, so maybe. So,
all right.
I'll think about something.
Otherwise, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes, until the books are due back.
The library is closed. Padawan Library is hosted and produced by Tim May and Levi Peretic. It is edited by Tim May. Our theme song is by The Astral Project. Our artwork is by Freddie Funbuns. Padawan Library is copyright 2021. Tim May and Levi Peretic. All rights reserved.